5 episodes of reality. Now let's get to the good bit. This is why game collecting matters. This is why we collect and ultimately what it's all about. This is the love letter to game collect. If you've watched all 5 episodes of this series, you've seen us speak about the money traps, the psychological problems, the practical problems, a little bit of an identity crisis, try to find a balance. That was a lot. There was a lot of heavy truths in there. There was a lot of uncomfortable questions and a lot of reflection and introspection that you'll have seen me do on camera. And if you guys are still here, then you love this hobby as much as I do. And today we are going to dive in to what makes this hobby so great. We've sprinkled this throughout the videos that we've done in this series, but today I wanted to carve out a bit of time that is purely to the joy that this hobby brings us. And we're not going to do our usual formula where we only have 3 things to speak about. We're actually going to talk about the 6 things that make this hobby fantastic. So let's dive in to number 1, which is the hunt for games is genuinely thrilling. Like, there is no better feeling in my mind of walking into like a charity shop or getting up nice and early for a car boot sale, even scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, Vinted, eBay, and you see that game. Now, it could be anything, right? It could be a game that you've had your eye on for a little bit, but you've not been able to find it. It could just be something that's a little bit more uncommon. It could be something that someone has put up at a price point that you see it and you're like, yes, that is the price point for me. I feel so alive! Or it could even be one of your grails, right? It could be one of the games that you've been looking for months and months, and you finally see it, and you get that feeling, that adrenaline, that excitement that just ultimately never gets old. And there's probably some sort of like primal element to all of it, right? That sort of like hunter-gatherer type thing where this is sort of built into us that we need to go out and do this. But there is the detective element of tracking down old games and building a collection is unmatched. And this is probably the closest I'll ever get to be something like a stamp collector, and you know how much people love collecting all that kind of stuff, because this is, in my opinion, one of my favourite things about this hobby. There is a satisfaction that you get from a long hunt that when you finally get it to pay off, that buzz is unreal, and I absolutely love it so much. I'm currently undergoing something right now that is exactly like that. We are trying to get all of the EA big games, which is something that we spoke about many times here on the channel. We're going to have a dedicated video to this at some point in the future of that, I have no doubt. And I've been trying to get these in person. I think I've got maybe 30% of them so far, but there is this really, really like warm fuzzy feeling that I get every time I go into like a CEX or independent shop, even a charity shop, and I see one that's on my list that's in good condition for the nice price. I'm just like, yes, that is what I'm in this to do. This is what I'm here for.
That's what I'm talking about!
There is no better feeling. Like, the thrill is real, the dopamine is certainly real, and it brings a little bit of adventure, you know, like every hunt could be the hunt where you find that one that you're absolutely looking for and the one that you're dying to get. So it adds that little bit of extra something when you do then actually find it. And I want to hear down in the comments below, what is that hunt? Like, I want to know, I want to hear you guys' like best stories of game hunts that you've done. I've seen some great ones in my time on YouTube, but I want to hear your stories. So let me know down below. Okay, so number 2, the next thing we're going to speak about today is you're preserving history. Even if that isn't actually the end game and the goal of what you're doing, you kind of are preserving something from a forgotten time. You know, like discs can deteriorate. Everyone's heard about disc rot and about how, all these games are going to fail one day. Not quite, but they can deteriorate. Cartridges can fail. Digital storefronts can close. Games can get delisted. And if companies out there aren't going to preserve their own history, then we might as well, as collectors, do that for them. And like, there's plenty of examples of this happening. Like games like Deadpool, for example, is probably one of the famous ones I can think of, where when that was pulled from storefronts, you can only have physical copies of that, and that is why there is a value attached to that. I think the game itself is meant to be okay. If you can only play it physically or buy it physically these days, then, well, you buy that, you'll always have a copy of it. Forza games are always another one where they are worth a little bit more than you would think, just because they end up getting pulled down for licensing issues. The same as any like the GTA remakes, for example, or the remasters aren't the same because the music licenses aren't there. But if you've got that original copy of Vice City, then you can always chuck it in a PS2 and go back and listen to those radio stations the way that they were when it came out. Isn't there something special about that? Isn't there something that we should celebrate about that you have in effect archived this little slice of history, and it'll always be yours no matter what? I love that personally. That is one of my favourite things. It is so cool to look at the games I have and go, I'll always have that. That will always be mine, and I can play that at any given point and it will just work. Especially when, and it's probably a discussion for another day, like games are a form of art, and they kind of are like a cultural artifact, I suppose, of that time, or of a slice of culture they're trying to put in front of you. So it is quite nice that we can have our own little copies of that and keep them safe, hopefully forever. Which then brings us on to the third thing that we're going to speak about today, which is physical media does hit differently. Like, there is something to be said for going to a shop or going to shelves or wherever it is, and you pick up a game and you physically look at it. You're able to look at the cover, you're able to flick through the manual, even just that sort of that noise that it makes when you take a disc out, or the noise of putting a cartridge in to like something like a SNES. That, to me, is unrivaled and unmatched. You just don't get that in 2026 with something like a digital marketplace, something like Steam or the Xbox store. There isn't that same connection. I always find if I buy a game physically, I have more of a chance of playing and completing it than I do if I grab something in a Steam sale, for example. Because having it in front of me, it just feels a little bit more real. Tell me if I'm crazy at home, but that is certainly how it feels like to me. And who doesn't love flicking through manuals? I wish that even physical games that came out currently had a half decent manual with them. You just don't get that as much anymore. Like, you get like collector's editions, for example, that have like little like art cards or whatever else, and those are cool. Who doesn't love them? But a standard edition, like, just give me like a manual with like a little bit of art, a little bit of backstory to the game. That would go a long way to me making modern gaming actually kind of feel a bit more like what it used to. And ultimately, you know, if you've got the physical game, you own it. You know, it can't be delisted or taken away from you. And yeah, you can then do with it whatever you want. You can sell it and trade it off. You can't really do that with stuff from a digital marketplace. And I think that's where physical media will always be king. It is a shame that we have digital consoles these days, and I suspect that maybe the PS6 or whatever Xbox called their next consoles, they might not allow physical media, and if that happens, that is going to be a very, very sad day for us all, especially for some of us who have terrible internet and would take days to download a modern release. Okay, truth number 4 for today is nostalgia can be wonderful. We spoke about this in episode 2, where yeah, nostalgia can lie to you. Nostalgia can tell you that a game is better than what it was, but on the flip side, it can deliver some pure joy. Like, the difference is that sometimes games can hold up, and even in some cases be better than I remember them or you remember them. Like, another example of this would be something like Pokemon Coliseum. I loved Pokemon Coliseum when I was a kid. It's one of the few GameCube games that I actually bought. I had a GameCube, but I still think I preferred the PS2, and weirdly I never quite took to it the way that I thought I would. But this is one of the games that stood the test of time, and I dare say playing it again is actually better than I remember it being. That dark, sort of gritty undertone that game has, they could really do with a bit more of that in the current day. And XD Gale of Darkness, as some of you may know at home, is my grail. It is the game I want so badly, and if I ever get the chance to get a hold of it and can, you know, swing it financially, we're gonna have a whole video dedicated to that on this channel. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, if you're interested in retro games and chatting about those kind of things, drop us a subscribe and keep an eye out for those future videos of the channel. But there is something to be said for putting in a game into the disc tray and it just like immediately transports you back like 20 years in time. Like, I know for a fact if I had Need for Speed Underground 2, which was a game I loved but never ever owned, if I had that, I would just be immediately taken back to being like 10 or 11 years old in one of my mate's bedrooms. We just sat with 2 controls and just raced all the time. So much fun, man. Like, an absolutely unreal bit of gaming history. And ultimately, as much as I quite enjoy Forza Horizon as an arcadey racer, they just don't quite make racing games like that anymore. It is always nice when your memories of these games then match the reality of what you're given in the modern day when you go and play it. Like, it's that kind of sweet spot of nostalgia, isn't it? And we all love it. Like, it's the whole reason why we're doing this ultimately, right? That there's a level of nostalgia that we have for these things, and it is great when it just hits. Not all nostalgia is a lie, and having a connection to the past can bring you a lot of joy if indeed the game holds up. So the fifth thing we're going to chat about today, your collection is ultimately and uniquely yours. Now, no two collections are the same. Like, the games that you own, the games that you decide to buy, they kind of reflect you and what it is you're trying to do if you're curating a collection versus just buying a full set. Though, in fairness, buying a full set probably does say something in itself if you have a special connection to a console and you really, really like that console. So I think I'm going to walk back what I've just said there, but like, ultimately, it's the bits of gaming history that you decide you care about. It is the preferences that you have ultimately, and it's your budget, your priorities. No one else will have the exact same collection as you do. So that in itself makes them a sort of deeply personal thing, and they become like a mix of the games that you played as a kid. If you're able to go back and find stuff up on like a loft or in a cupboard somewhere, they're games that you discovered later on in life that you missed out on when you were younger, and can bring you some joy in 2026, which is absolutely mental to say that out loud. That is now where we're at. These are the genres that you love, even the blind spots and the surprises. These are all the games that you have decided at some point in time that you want. You should be proud. You should show that off as much as you possibly can, because that is yours. No one can take that away from you. People might try and drag you down for having what you have. Don't listen to them. You should be proud of what you've got. Choices have been made. You have set some priorities. This is your creation. Have a bit of pride in it. This is your gaming history. And the sixth and final thing I want to briefly chat about today is the community is unmatched. I have been in some Discords and chatting away to a few people throughout the months since we started this channel, which would have been April 2025 was kind of when we started. And there's a lot of really, really cool people and really, really nice people in this space. I've discovered YouTube channels I'd never even heard of before, and sat and binged a whole bunch of content from these people who all have the same passions that we have at TNF. And I don't know if there's that many hobbies out there that you could find that level of connection. And it is really, really cool to see people out there that help each other try and find games that they want. Like, you'll find that people will be in a random CEX and they'll put up photos in a Discord and go and at a person going, were you not looking for this the other day? I've managed to find this. That level of sort of helping each other out, sharing knowledge back and forth, and celebrating when people pick up something that they're looking for. I love that. Like, it just makes your heart feel all warm and fuzzy. People actually being nice on the internet, you know, who'd have thunk it? Especially when there aren't an awful lot of brick and mortar game stores out there. The midnight lodge culture, which we spoke about before on the channel, isn't really there as much as it was. These bits of community that we still have left that we can go out and make those connections with, we need to celebrate that, and we need to hold that dear as much as we can, because something like that might not exist if we don't care for it, you know, and like put in the time and effort. And I think ultimately the community that exists for this hobby complements it to the point where the entire hobby becomes better off for it. And I really, really like that element of it. This is something that has gripped me even more, and it's got game collecting like really deep in there, because there's just a lot of people out there who just want to celebrate it and just talk about games, play games, and help each other find them. What's not to love? So yeah, collecting can be expensive and frustrating. It could take up space. It can be addictive. It could even be lonely. We've covered all of this in this series. But look what you get out of it the other side. You get a community that understands there's sort of a purpose through preservation. There's the thrill of the hunt, the tangible ownership of looking at your collection and going, that is all mine.
Nice.
Every challenge that we face in this hobby is worth it for these moments. The good absolutely outweighs the bad, at least in my opinion. The joy outweighs the frustration. You know, everyone in the community is all in this together, and everyone kind of understands each other and supports each other and preserves together. And if you're someone who's an existing member of this community, you know, thank you for being a part of this, because without you being there, this community would just be that little bit less joyful. I'd love to know though down in the comments, why is it you collect and what is it you're here to do, what you're wanting to achieve. I love reading stories about this kind of stuff. It is the stuff that I could sit there all day and read and chat about what it is people are trying to do. So yeah, let us know down in the comments. I'd love to have a little chat and read about that. And if you're new here though, welcome to something special. Welcome to a hobby that, yes, you have learned the hard truths and you've heard about the stumbling blocks, but knowing that if you collect with intention, a bit of joy, a bit of balance, you're going to be joining an amazing community that is ultimately here to help you and will be able to help you and like really unlocking one of, in my opinion, the greatest things that you can speak about ever, which is video games. It's not a massive surprise that someone who has a game software development degree loves it as much as I do, but that's where we are. And you know, for veteran collectors out there, you know, cheers to every single one of you. Like, you have preserved gaming history. Your knowledge and passion matters and comes through. And just, you know, keep on going. You know, keep on collecting, keep on sharing, keep on putting out those positive vibes out there for newbies who are going to come and join this hobby, because it will help them get involved so much if you're welcoming and let them in. But this series was an interesting one to make, and it has left me reflecting and thinking a lot on how I perceive a lot of these things. But I've loved every minute of, you know, researching this, thinking about this, talking about this with you guys at home. You know, I love this hobby and this community. It is great. So thank you very much for going on this journey with me, and let's just keep collecting, but collecting the right way. You might be wondering, we've had our 6 episodes, what is coming up next on the channel? Well, we're going to have a diversified range of content. You're going to have your usual game hunts that are going to be on the channel where we go out there and try and find things. We're going to have some stuff around other bits and bobs of collecting. I know that certainly Saunders is into sports cards, so that's something that we might have to have a chat about in terms of, like, he quite likes wrestling cards and whatever else. Those are things that he really, really enjoys collecting, so no doubt we'll have some videos on that. We'll have our usual talking heads, video essays, all the kind of things that we love to chat about on this channel. We appreciate each and every one of you who has been watching these videos, liking, subscribing, commenting. It does not go unnoticed, and we've really, really enjoyed the feedback that we've had for these. We'll no doubt have series or mini series on other various things in the future. Now, go out there, enjoy your collection, play some games, and remember why I love this. And we'll see you guys next time.